Alright, today we're going to be taking a look at the supposed deserved downfall of Hooters. I've never actually been to a Hooters. However, my girlfriend has been to a femboy Hooters in Singapore. So, I guess it is a deserved downfall. I don't know. Let's see. This video is by Dakota Talks. As usual, their link will be down in the description for the original video. And yeah, let's get right into it.
Over the past 20 years, the restaurant, known as Hooters, has been on the slow decline, and they've been doing everything in their power to fight it, but nothing is working. They tried to force their servers to wear even more revealing outfits, launching spin-off restaurants, and focusing marketing to families and younger generations. Despite this, though,
yeah, younger generations. Let's get the kids hooked on Hooters. That'll be wonderful. We got Hooters Happy Meals now.
They've racked up, no pun intended, over $300 million in debt. They've closed over 40 locations and recently even declared bankruptcy. So today I want to dive into the very interesting and controversial rise of Hooters, as well as why they're failing and if it's even salvageable at this point. So Hooters was founded in 1983 by 6 guys in Florida.
Who would have thought? Who would have thought?
6 guys had no restaurant experience and just wanted a place they could go that they wouldn't get kicked out of. And I'm not even kidding, that's literally what it says on the Hooters website. These guys had the revolutionary idea of bringing attractive women in revealing clothing to exclusively be the servers in their restaurant, coining the term breastaurant.
They're literally just all clones.
Which is actually a real name of a business industry now. However, at the start, Hooters was bound to fail. In fact, they actually founded the company on April Fool's Day as a joke because they, quote, expected their prospects to fail. So not only did they have no experience and no confidence, but their first day went horribly wrong. They couldn't figure out how to light the fryers, they didn't have their alcohol license yet, and they only attracted about 3 customers. Despite all of this, they somehow managed to make it work. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, you know, sex sells. It just does. It's just a fact of life.
Yo, guys, should I launch an OnlyFans? Would you all subscribe to that? It's just like more pictures of cereal, but like less and less actual cereal until it's just milk at the end.
Sex sells very well. And at the time, there was just an audience for an idea like this. And it broke through all of their shortcomings. They were also early adopters of chicken wings and made this an iconic part of their brand. About a year after the launch, the original Hooters 6, as they're called, were approached by a man named Hugh Connerty. And Hugh ended up buying the rights to Hooters with the goal of taking it worldwide, which I know it was like a really successful business, and we're gonna get into all of that, but I just can't help but laugh at the idea of this guy walking into a Hooters, getting a drink, and sitting down with these 6 guys, getting a little tipsy, and getting all excited and just drunkenly signing the papers and being like, we're going worldwide, baby! Woohoo! Rounds on me! Under Hugh, they founded the Hooters of America and began to expand rapidly and improve their advertising a lot. In terms of advertising, they did some very interesting things. They established the original Hooters girl, Lynn Austin, and they got her to do like a ton of different advertising campaigns, from the commercials.
Hey kids, you want to do your dad a really big favor? Tell your mom you want to go to Hooters.
They made Hooters-themed calendars. They had a late-night TV show, and Lynn Austin even made the centerfold of Playboy magazine in 1986, all of which boosting the Hooters brand to new heights. In 1991, Robert Brooks bought out Hugh Connerty and caused the company to expand internationally. Now, this was the golden age of Hooters. It was just constant growth, constant media attention.
Oh yeah, that was constant growth, all right.
Constant new advertising campaigns and interesting business ventures, and it was seemingly only up from here. However, this is when Hooters started being hit with their first major controversies. In 1995, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission said that Hooters exclusively hiring young women to be their waitresses was illegal and discriminatory. They claimed that if they wanted to only hire young women and be an adult club, then they could do that. But because they claimed to be a chain family restaurant, discriminating on the basis of sex is illegal under the Civil Rights Act. They also told them that they had to pay out $22 million to men who could prove they had been discriminated against because of their gender. But Hooters was not going to take this case sitting down. They started to run advertising campaigns of a hairy man dressed up in a Hooters girl outfit with a blonde wig on.
I'm telling you, they should have just launched femboy Hooters. Everyone would have loved that.
I guess to show how ridiculous this would be, they also brushed off the case, calling it frivolous claims in an era of political correctness. They also started encouraging and actually paying for their customers to send mail to DC to shut down this case. And their customers listened. Hundreds of thousands of angry postcards flooded into Washington, absolutely livid about the idea of forcing Hooters to hire men. And these postcards are genuinely fucking insane. Here are some of my favorite ones that I found. EEOC, find something else to bitch about. Hooters girls were made for male enjoyment. Hooters is a tradition. No guys. Listen up, you equal opportunity communists. If you pull any of this
Oh yeah, this is back in the day where you could call anyone a communist and like instantly get them fired.
crap, I'll personally kill every member of Congress, guaranteed. Bro, that guy has some problems. But if you get so mad that you will declare by sending in a letter a threat on every member of Congress because you're worried about not being able to take your son to a Hooters club and stare at women while you watch the football game, you need to seriously reevaluate some shit. They also got hundreds of Hooters girls to do a march on Washington to even further put political and public pressure on Congress to shut down this investigation. Hooters argued that the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission is wasting taxpayer dollars, ignoring its mission and setting aside the interest of individuals with real discrimination claims in an effort to force the Hooters restaurant to hire men to be Hooters girls. The EEOC at this time was also incredibly underfunded and overworked, reportedly leaving the average employee with 145 cases each. And this entire controversy happened to coincide with the government shutdown, leading to the EEOC being at even more of a disadvantage and being even less funded. In the end, Hooters won, and as they say on their website, the future of the Hooters girl was secured. Wow. How wonderful. To be honest, I have a lot of thoughts on this. In terms of this specific case with the EEOC, forcing them to hire men and pay out millions of dollars to men who were discriminated against, I lean siding with Hooters, to be honest with you. Because if you make Hooters hire men and you take away the Hooters girls branding, then it just becomes your average sports bar. It loses its entire branding that makes it iconic. And I think that the EEOC, with their very limited resources, should have been more focused on the more important discrimination cases rather than this. But on the other hand, that's not to say that I love everything that Hooters did here and that I am in full agreement with Hooters every time, or the entire concept. In fact, I have some very strong objections to the entire concept of the Hooters franchise. I personally think that the entire idea behind the restaurant is inherently exploitative and creepy. I'm not one of those losers who thinks that like women who are sex workers or wear revealing clothing are like low quality or whatever. I think that's fucking stupid and bullshit. My problem with Hooters is not with the women themselves. It's with the company using these women as eye candy to put in this family restaurant. And I just think that the entire...
Yeah, it really shouldn't be like a family restaurant. This should be something like you go just a level below going to a strip club, you know? Just like a tiny bit.
idea just has this built-in objectification and exploitation that is just bound to come from it. When your business is all about hiring young, attractive women, you're literally making your hiring practices based on the subjective physical attractiveness of the person applying for a job. And again, mixing this very sexually charged business with the family who's coming in to watch the football game. I'm just saying that if you're the guy who makes the hiring decisions for a Hooters location, it is a inherently subjective and sexually charged requirement that these women are supposed to meet, which in my opinion is just a concerning dynamic that will and has led to exploitation and harassment and assault and much more. I understand that the sexual component of Hooters is vital to their success, and I don't have a problem with women who feel comfortable or proud to express themselves in being a Hooters waitress. I think that's awesome. Again, my problem is with the inevitable objectification and exploitation that this entire concept brings. I don't have a moral objection to an OnlyFans model creating explicit content and making money from it. However, that doesn't mean that I'm all for the creepy Andrew Tate, Jack Doherty guys who manipulate women into signing shitty contracts when they're like 18 years old, and in the case of Andrew Tate, literally have human trafficking charges against you. All this being said, I'm fine with Hooters continuing to hire only
He got like doxxed by a pizza box or something. It's fucking crazy.
Women to be servers in their restaurant. Because again, I know that they're not discriminating against men here. It's that their whole business model is literally about the women servers. Now, I think that Hooters handled this case in a very gross way, like for example calling it political correctness just gives me the ick, I guess you could say. But regardless, I think that the case brought up by the EEOC was not sufficient in addressing the genuine concern for employee safety, but rather focused on this honestly pointless restriction that objectively ruins the business that they're targeting and uses their extremely limited resources to do so. I still have my own personal issues with the company, and we're going to talk more about that, but I don't think that this case is the way to address those concerns. So while Hooters won in the end and continued business as usual, this criticism did not leave, and the controversies were far from over. In fact, from this point on, it was honestly just controversy after controversy after controversy all the way up to today.
I mean, it's a very controversial business model, obviously, so it makes sense that they'd be surrounded by controversy.
But to be clear, we're not at the downfall yet. Hooters was still seeing unprecedented growth at this point, and honestly no sign of slowing down despite all of this controversy. And in 2003, they launched their next interesting business venture, Hooters Air. That's right, Hooters actually had...
What? They had a Hooters Airbus?
A fucking Airline. Essentially, Hooters Air offered relatively cheap flights to a limited number of areas, slapped a massive Hooters logo on the side of the plane, essentially acting as a flying advertisement for the company, and they also put 2 Hooters waitresses on every single flight to assist the flight attendants and entertain the passengers. Which I don't know about you guys, but I'm not getting on that plane, okay?
That plane is going down immediately.
Say it. I don't want to be like being rescued from a plane crash and I'm being pulled, by the fire department or whatever out of like a fucking Hooters aircraft. Like that would be so embarrassing. Can you imagine? No, I just thought, I don't know, I thought it was funny. It was like weird. I don't know. It's just like the food's good there is the thing.
Imagine dying on a Hooters aircraft.
That's why I went on the plane. But also,
you'd get turned into the chicken wings.
I'm not trusting Hooters. I don't really trust the fucking chicken wing restaurant that was founded in Florida by these random 6 drunk guys. I'm not gonna get on a fucking aircraft that they created. Are you kidding me? I don't trust that. I'm sure it was fine, but I don't trust it. Can you fucking imagine, let's imagine that there's an afterlife and you die in a Hooters airplane crash and you go up to heaven and you see your grandma for the first time in 20 years and you say, "Grandma, it's so nice to see you." And she says, "Oh, it's so nice to see you too. Well, how did you die?" And you say, "Oh, I was in a Hooters aircraft." "Oh, Hooters, the restaurant? I love that place. They've got great chicken wings."
It's an awesome grandma who runs in the family.
Me and your papa used to go every day. It was quite a joint. He liked it a lot more than I did. I never understood it quite fully. But for real, this venture was obviously very comical, but also I think was honestly a pretty effective marketing tool, both through the literal flying advertisement through the air and also the media coverage of this comical company. However, despite that, it only lasted about 3 years, closing down in January of 2006 due to a lack of profit and increased fuel prices after Hurricane Katrina and Rita, ending Hooters Air as being a net loss of $40 million for Hooters, but likely an effective marketing tool. So was it really a loss? I don't know. Meanwhile, while Hooters was parading around their wacky antics on TV, they were dealing with multiple serious lawsuits in the background. In 2000, Sarah Steinhoff, a former Hooters server, won $275,000 in a sexual harassment lawsuit against Hooters. According to ABC News, she testified that her managers tried to force her to go home with them, and one of them even threatened to tie her up. Other former waitresses...
Okay, I was gonna say you work at Hooters, there's gonna be some level of sexual harassment, at least from the customers, but this is crossing the line. Just like a tiny, itsy-witsy little bit.
Has also testified, saying that the managers
Christ.
would, quote, discipline waitresses by forcing them to perform in the restaurant's Friday night football bikini contest. These are absolutely deplorable working conditions. Let's be very clear about that. And you would think that when Hooters is confronted with this information, they would say, "Oh, wow, that's bad. We should definitely get on that. We're so sorry that this happened to you. We will give you a settlement and we will fix this moving forward." But no, that is not what they did. In fact, they did the fucking opposite. They are literally quoted responding, saying, "We will fight this in any legal way we can because we believe it is wrong," calling the verdict unsupported by evidence, and even further discrediting the victim by saying, during the trial, Miss Steinhoff admitted that she only complained one time in early 1997 about any problems with management. Miss Steinhoff continued to work at Hooters for more than 6 months and never again complained. And I'm sorry, but this is literally the corporation version of going, well, maybe you shouldn't have worn that dress that was so revealing. Like, you cannot seriously be a fully formed human being and blame a woman who was sexually harassed at work for not being vocal enough and immediately quitting her job because of it. What if she relied on this job to get by, and she worried that being too vocal on this issue would get her fired? And also, if she complained at even one time, maybe you should look into it, right? What the fuck is this argument? I don't understand. I don't understand at all. This case shows Hooters' willingness to blame victims for not being vocal enough after being sexually harassed at work, rather than admitting any wrongdoing on their part. As I said earlier, the whole concept of Hooters is very prone to sexual harassment and exploitation. And this is only one of the many, many cases showing that this is not only something that happens at Hooters because of this concept, but also is something that is handled horribly when it comes up. Another example of this is in 2004, when 2 women who were independently applying for jobs at a Hooters in California both independently came out and filed police reports saying they had seen cameras in the changing room while they were changing into their Hooters uniform. The police then see...
What the fuck? That should be a crime. That probably is a crime. Maybe not back then, but now it certainly is. You can't fucking have cameras in the changing room.
Used 180 videotapes from this location. The videotapes showed women ages 17 to 25 years old who had been filmed changing without their knowledge. When girls were applying, the manager would ask the girls to step into the trailer behind the restaurant and change into their uniform. And when they did that, he would put a hidden camera in there and unknowingly record them changing. After this was found out and the women were identified, 40 of them came together and sued the company. They complained not only about the obvious, insane violation of privacy there, but also that the manager was very disgusting and creepy in the interview process. Some even reported that they were touched by him under the guise of addressing their uniform. Absolutely abhorrent behavior from this manager. So what was Hooters' response to all of this? Well, it was a lot better this time, but it's still not great. It was likely better because there's literally no possible way to argue against this. Not that I think you should argue against the other ones, but this one literally is explicitly illegal with video evidence and hundreds of victims. According to CNN's reporting at the time of the incident, police said Hooters had been very cooperative with the ongoing investigation. Aponte, the manager, was fired. Files and videotapes are in the possession of authorities. And Joel said that the company intends to address the incident with additional employee training. Quote, this was the—
I don't know if employee training would ever fix something like this. This is like a fundamental issue with hiring someone like this. They need to do a better job, screening their managers.
The intentional act of one employee, Joel said. We're pretty upset, but the problem is when someone commits an intentional act like that, there's not much you can do. And while this is certainly better than denying and fighting at every possible opportunity like they've done before, in my opinion, it still shows a lack of care. It seems like they did the bare minimum to legally get by. As CNN reported, the police said that they had been very cooperative. Yeah, no shit. Cooperating with the police, seizing a fucking serial creeper like this is the bare minimum, right? Also, Hooters saying that they're going to address it with additional employee training kind of concerns me because did you not make it clear beforehand that you're not supposed to film the employees while they're changing?
True.
They did what they had to do in this case, and I don't think they did any more than that, which to me is not enough. Once the 2010s rolled around, Hooters had definitely peaked. The controversies had built up so tall, and the stigma surrounding the restaurant was very palpable. Hooters was very much a place that was viewed as sleazy or gross, right? It's somewhere where a divorced dad takes their son because they can't take him to the strip club. It's the place that your weird-ass uncle goes to.
That's pretty much exactly what I said earlier.
But he claims that he just goes there for the wings because they're just so good. However, despite this, the company was not in panic mode yet. They were still making a profit, enough to be able to do what they wanted to do, so why would they really care about what people thought about them? At this point, there was enough divorced dads and creepy uncles to keep them in business. However, there was no doubt a significant decrease in growth in this period. They were no longer hitting record highs and doing all these wacky, interesting business ventures and promotional materials. They were just settled into their weird little restaurant and trucking along enough to get by. However, the controversies kept on coming. In 2011, 2 Hooters girls sued the company after being told they had to lose weight if they wanted to keep their job. Quote, the girls were reportedly told they had to lose weight in order to properly fit into the company's tight uniforms. In another story, a waitress reported that she was told by her manager that her clothes were not fitting properly anymore and that she would be given a gym membership, and that if she didn't improve in the next 30 days, then she would possibly be separated from the company.
I mean, I understand, again, like, they're supposed to have super attractive girls, and that's, like, the whole business model, but, isn't this also super illegal?
Now, Hooters, of course, denies that the women were threatened with losing their jobs over their weight, and this case was settled out of court. But I find it really hard to believe that that was not the case, given everything that we know, right, leading up to this point. Another notable scandal was in 2015, when former server Farron Johnson was awarded $250,000 from Hooters after expressing that her manager told her she could not put blonde streaks in her hair because, and I quote, "Black people do not have blonde hair." Johnson said she was told to change her hair color and given 6 weeks to do so. Some non-black employees were within their rights to dye or color their hair in similar fashions. Her boss said because they were white women who naturally have those hair colors. Johnson refused to change her hairstyle, and on August 12th, they told her she could not return to work. The manager argued that this was within his right because of the company's quote-unquote image policy, which stipulates that the hair of a so-called Hooters girl must look styled and glamorous and cannot appear bizarre, outrageous, or extreme, and cannot be colored more than 2 shades in variance from a natural color. The arbitrator ruled that since there were plenty of instances of public Hooters waitresses, even people in marketing materials, that were white, very blatantly violating this 2 shades rule, that the using it against Johnson was inherently just discriminatory. Now, how did Hooters respond to this controversy? And as usual, not great. Hooters blasted the decision, labeling it biased and flawed. The company said in a statement that any suggestions of discrimination against its black employees and their hairstyles could not be further from the truth. I'm noticing a bit of a pattern here. Are you?
They're just kind of denying, going the bare minimum possible response. I mean, in like corporations nowadays, that also is kind of just the average. Like, you can't expect much more. I mean, you should, but they're all just bent on profit maximization. If they admit something's wrong, like, oh, they messed up, then shareholders and people might be like, oh, no, this company's terrible. But to be fair, if you're investing in Hooters, what would you think?
You guys, whenever Hooters is faced with a case of discrimination, harassment, assaults, etc., if they have even the slightest bit of room to call it a he said, she said, they do it. And they call it baseless and false. If they have even the slightest bit of room to discredit somebody for not speaking up enough, they will do it. Now, obviously, we all love due process, right? We all love due process of law. We all love being innocent until proven guilty. We don't just take the accuser's word for everything and then immediately apply the maximum punishment. We hear out both sides. Well, at least we hear out both sides of American citizens, but that's besides the point. But in the case of Johnson, the manager guy was straight up defending his position, and Hooters decided to take his side. There is a very clear pattern of Hooters, rather than apologizing and properly addressing the issues that caused these cases, simply like to brand it as false, discredit the victim with no evidence or elaborating, pay out money if they have to, and then move the fuck on like nothing happened. And understand as well that I did not cover all of their lawsuits. There are literally dozens of cases that I didn't even touch on, featuring more discrimination, harassment, assault, and this pattern presents itself in every single one of these cases. This is a serious problem that needs to be addressed. And I think their total lack of care for these issues is something that has genuinely destroyed this company. In today's world, like it or not, people care about how other people are treated in their workplace. People care when they hear women speak out about harassment or assault and are shut down and discredited. Call it DEI, but people don't like to hear that a black woman was told she can't wear her hair blonde because it's not natural. Call it whatever you want, but people don't like to hear about women being told they would be fired if they didn't lose weight. You can call it fucking woke, okay? But people in today's world have this crazy thing called empathy, where they care if they hear about somebody at a place being treated unfairly or unequally. And this company has repeatedly shown a pattern of not only having cases that are clearly unfair and unequal and even dangerous, but also a pattern of handling them in the worst ways possible. This company has repeatedly displayed its literal disdain for victims who come out with stories that happened due to the environment that this company facilitates. And when the consumers see stories like this over and over and over and over again for literal decades, eventually people just don't really fuck with that restaurant anymore. And by 2017, these issues were undeniable for Hooters. Sales were dropping. So in an attempt to save themselves, they launched Hoots, which is a spin-off restaurant with the same food from Hooters, but with more family-friendly professional attire. And
they're just trying to like rebrand, go the safer route, the more production-friendly route with pretty much like the same as McDonald's, whatever. I mean, I don't think anyone exactly loves the wings at Hooters. They don't go there for that. They go there for the visuals, And I guess if they like dramatically make their recipe better or something like that, then this could be like a pretty big successful thing. But Hooters was built on one thing, and I don't think Hoots is going to do too much about that.
They also hired men. Crazy, I know. And Hoots has actually been decently successful. It's hard to tell what the fate of Hoots will be because it's a pretty new company relatively, but compared to Hooters itself, it is way less controversial and shows a hell of a lot more room for growth. However, I view the launch of Hoots as the company sort of admitting defeat. I think that as the Hooters brand became more...
Hooters is also like something that's kind of from a bygone era, because nowadays the internet exists. You have... Oh my god, shut up. You have pretty much anything at the tip of your fingers. You can search up so much research. It's called research. And you don't need to go to a restaurant. You don't need to do anything like this. Like, I guess the real life experience is a little different, but people have gotten so much more extreme. They'd rather just go to a strip club. They'd rather hire a prostitute. They'd rather do anything like that than just go to Hooters. You want good chicken, you go somewhere else. You go to like KFC or something. You wouldn't go to Hooters for the chicken, and you wouldn't go to Hooters for the sexual experience either. You'd use your phone and maybe have like ordered in KFC or something like that.
More and more unpopular in today's world, Hooters felt that they needed to make radical changes to adapt to the modern world. And I think Hoots was their attempt of doing this. That being said, though, they weren't fully abandoning Hooters by any means. They were still working to make it last. But I do believe that them shifting to this company that they literally fought tooth and nail to avoid becoming, launching that restaurant, is sort of a way of being like, okay, so we can't really keep doing the shit that we wanted to do because people don't fuck with it anymore. I think it shows that the concept is flawed in today's world. But then the COVID-19 pandemic hit, and suddenly nobody was going to Hooters. Not even your creepy uncle. And you know he wanted to. But Hooters was actually prepared for this. Once the lockdown hit, every restaurant started focusing on delivery and takeout instead of
They're gonna make like a sexy delivery boy or something.
restaurant dining experiences. And while the entire idea of Hooters is a dine-in experience, and they weren't properly prepared to do all of this takeout and delivery, their new company, Hoots, actually was very well prepared for this. They ended up essentially turning the Hoots kitchens that they already had into multiple different ghost kitchens, which if you don't know what a ghost kitchen is, it's essentially a virtual restaurant that runs out of existing kitchens but doesn't have a physical location that you can go to. And Hooters was actually early to the ghost kitchen scene, launching their first ghost kitchen, Hootie's Burger Bar, in 2019, and later launching Hootie's Bait and Tackle, the seafood restaurant, as well as Hootie's Chicken Tenders. So once everyone was trapped in their homes and food delivery usage spiked like crazy and everyone was ordering food online, Hooters had essentially...
Speaking about this whole delivery thing, people have been financing like burritos and burgers and stuff because of these like buy now, pay later things, like paying for subscriptions. If you think I should do a video on that, then let me know down in the comments. I'll probably do it because it's a very fascinating subject that you have to you have to get a burger on EMI and stuff. It's crazy.
Already built an entire network of virtual storefronts that would all grow on their own. They essentially had 4 different independently growing restaurants and only had to pay 1 staff for all of them. And this business model was super successful during COVID. However, in 2022, Hooters did polling and found that 75% of people ordering food from their virtual kitchens had never ordered from the main Hooters brand, which a Hooters official, Mark Butler, said in an interview, quote, "I was really expecting a little bit more overlap, but it seems that still, even to this day, 3-4 years later, we're still attracting a new customer with it." However, I would argue that these numbers are actually really bad for Hooters, because this means that while the world was in a global lockdown and no one was going to Hooters, those sales that they saw from all of their virtual locations was not the people that actually go to Hooters. And there's no proof to show that all of a sudden now they're gonna start going to Hooters. So
honestly, the best move for Hooters is to completely rebrand into like, I don't know, something else and forget the Hooters name, because people, like, let's say you're ordering chicken for your kid's birthday party. Where are you gonna order from? Not Hooters. It doesn't matter what like family-friendly design they have, even if it's called Hoots or whatever. You're not gonna order from there. You're gonna order from somewhere else that doesn't have such an interesting reputation.
It wasn't maintaining the core Hooters audience, and it definitely was not bringing in...
Is there a Hooters fan base? Is there like people who collect Hooters merchandise and shit like that?
New people, at least not to any significant degree, in my opinion. After the pandemic restrictions were lifted, Hooters was stuck in a horrible spot. In June of 2024, Hooters announced they were suddenly shutting down 40 locations that were underperforming. And today, they've reportedly racked up $375 million in debt. And most recently, in March of 2025, Hooters filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. And while words like bankruptcy implies to most of us that the company is just going to go out of business and disappear, that's actually not the case here. It definitely does show that the way that they are doing business currently is very unsustainable and bound to fail, and shows how desperate they are. But they're actually doing this to attempt at restructuring the business. You see, the way that Hooters currently operates, the corporate directly owns 151 locations. However, there's also 154 locations operated by franchisees. And Hooters, by filing bankruptcy, is going to sell the remaining corporate locations to 2 franchisees. The buyer group is backed by some of the original Hooters founders and have expressed that they want to, quote, bring it back to its roots. And I'll be entirely honest here, I don't think this is going to work. While the management has expressed their confidence in this decision, and the reason that they're selling to them is because they own some of the higher performing Hooters locations, I really don't think bringing it back to its roots is going to fix the problem of having a business model that is outdated and widely unpopular today. There is a reason that the company has tried to change and evolve in the slight ways that it has to fit the modern era. There's a reason that Hoots is showing a lot more potential than the Hooters brand is now. There's a reason that there's such an insane stigma built up around going to a fucking Hooters. And with the current track record that Hooters has, I'm sorry, I just heavily doubt that this change will really address any of the underlying issues that Hooters is facing.
If I were to guess, Hooters is going to be out of business in like the next 5, maybe 10 years, because people just really don't like it anymore. People don't care for it, and I'm pretty much just repeating myself, but I don't think this is a smart decision. Like, they should really rebrand or something like that.
CEO has also come out and explained how they're going to be embracing charity work and removing bikini nights to target a more family-oriented customer base and try to repair their reputation. And I do think that these are solid steps in the right direction, but I honestly just don't have confidence that this company can even have a comeback in 2025. I think its reputation is too stained, and the stigma is just too strong, as well as the entire concept being outdated and just kind of weird. All right, thank you guys so much for watching this video. I really appreciate it. It ended up being a little bit longer than I thought, but
yeah, this was a really good video. It's by Dakota Talks. I'll keep the original video down the description as well as his channel. I found it to be very interesting. I like this guy. But if you enjoyed my video, you should make sure like, comment, subscribe, all that usual stuff. And check out some other reactions I've done. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one.